Live NFL trivia every Wednesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge for a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. The Super Bowl is the most watched television program each year in the United States. Even with television ratings seemingly declining every year for a variety of reasons, from the rise of streaming services to having more options to watch entertainment, the Super Bowl is the one thing that is held steady no matter what. The Super Bowl is the one event where you are guaranteed to get the whole country tuning in. And because of this, the most coveted spot that a television show can have in the entire calendar year is directly after the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl lead-out program is the very first thing that airs after the conclusion of the game. And while the ratings are obviously not as high as the ratings for the big game, because people leave their television sets on, the lead-out program is one of the highest-rated non-live television events of the year. This is a coveted spot that networks take and value very seriously. Sometimes, the spot gets wasted on a pilot for a TV show that lasts one season and is a complete flop. However, other times, the spot is used to the network's advantage, and catapults a show into success. Shows like The A-Team, Family Guy, and Undercover Boss premiered after the Super Bowl and had highly successful runs. What you might not realize is that there's another one of these shows that did that, even though 2 weeks before the game, that was not going to be the case. 2 weeks before Super Bowl XXII, ABC called an audible and changed their minds, in what turned out to be one of the greatest broadcasting decisions in the history of the Super Bowl that you might not know about. And this is the story behind that. Before I talk about the decision in question, we need some context to understand the history that ABC had with the lead-out program, as well as why they were having second thoughts about this one. And to truly understand the decision, we need to flash back 3 years to 1985. It's January 20th, 1985, and the Miami Dolphins are taking on the San Francisco 49ers at Super Bowl XIX. For ABC, this might be the biggest sporting event they've ever aired. After years of only televising Monday Night Football games, for the first time ever, they're televising the Super Bowl. As a side note, to learn more about how ABC got the rights to the NFL and Monday Night Football, click the card in the upper right corner. The game, even though it was a blowout which was won by the 49ers by a final score of 38-16, was a ratings success, and was expected to be when you had the two biggest stars in the game in Dan Marino and Joe Montana facing off against each other. In fact, it was such a success that the game drew an average of 85.5 million viewers, and a total television audience of 115.9 million viewers. Both of those numbers were records at the time for the most watched Super Bowl broadcast, and at the time, it was the third most watched television event in the history of American television, only trailing the 1978 fight between Leon Spinks and Muhammad Ali, and the series finale of MASH that aired in 1983. And with that huge television audience, ABC had a prime opportunity to air a lead-out program that would keep people glued to their television screens even after the conclusion of the game. What did ABC air in that coveted spot? They aired the pilot episode of a show called Magruder and Loud.
Sunday.
Murder.
Malcolm Magruder.
I want in.
Jenny Loud. Caught by day and lovers at night. Meet a very special couple, Magruder and Loud, this Sunday right after Super Bowl XIX.
Wait, you don't remember the show? You've never heard of the show? Don't worry, you're not alone. The show is a complete disaster. The show starred John Getz and Catherine Harold as married police officers who tried to keep their relationship a secret, and it was a gigantic failure. Some say that it's one of the biggest failures in the history of ABC. Even though the ratings started out alright, being 7th in the Nielsen ratings after a few episodes, a month or two into the series, audiences were tuning out, and the show's ratings declined dramatically to the point where the show, which was promoted heavily, was cancelled after just 15 episodes. The show first premiered on January 20th, 1985, and last aired on April 30th, 1985. It lasted 4 months. That was it. ABC's first attempt at airing a lead-out program for the Super Bowl was a failure in every sense of the word. Their second attempt had to go better. And the show they were going to air after the next go-around? That was a show by the name of China Beach. The next time ABC got the Super Bowl was 3 years later, when they were set to air Super Bowl XXII. ABC knew that they wanted to air a new program in this coveted lead-out spot, as had become somewhat of a tradition across the networks. You have to keep in mind that in the early days of the Super Bowl, the lead-out program was usually some other sporting event, like a golf tournament, a new show like 60 Minutes, or an established program like Lassie or All in the Family. But by the 1980s, every network that aired the game was using this time slot to air a brand new program in hopes of capturing that large television audience that they had from the Super Bowl. So it was never a question that ABC was going to air the pilot episode of a brand new program in this time slot. And in many ways, it's not hard to see why ABC decided that they were going to go with China Beach. Because the other thing that you have to remember is that with very few exceptions, Literally every single pilot episode that aired after the Super Bowl resulted in a series that flopped hard. NBC aired the pilot episode to Brothers and Sisters, a frat-based show inspired by Animal House, after Super Bowl XIII. That show got canceled after one season. And yes, according to the network executives, when the showrunners pledged to give that show another season, it was over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor. NBC aired the pilot episode to The Last Precinct, a police-based show, after Super Bowl XX. That show got canceled after one season. CBS aired the pilot episode to Hard Copy, a journalism-based drama, after Super Bowl XXI. That show got canceled after one season. Combined with the failure of Magruder and Loud, out of these 4 shows, all 4 of them got canceled after one season. They all flopped even despite having that huge built-in audience from the Super Bowl. However, prior to Super Bowl XXII, there were 6 instances of a network airing a pilot episode after the Super Bowl. You had those 4, and then you had NBC airing the A-Team after Super Bowl XVII, and you had CBS airing Airwolf after Super Bowl XVIII. Airwolf wasn't a rating success by any means. I'm not sure I'd even call it a success period considering the build-up to the show, but it lasted 3 seasons on the network, which is more than all those other shows can say. And then obviously, the A-Team was a home run. It was a massive rating success, finishing inside the top 10 in each of its first 3 seasons, and still being a part of pop culture today. What do both of those shows have in common that the 4 shows that got canceled didn't? They had to do with the military, and had to do with the Vietnam War. Based off of the history of new shows airing directly after the Super Bowl, the formula seems simple. If you air a Vietnam War-based show, it will succeed. If you air anything else, you are wasting your time, and it will fail. And the whole premise of China Beach was that it was a realistic portrayal of an evacuation hospital during the Vietnam War. Heck, even the name of the show, China Beach, is a reference to the beach of that nickname from the war, and the show was created by William Broyles Jr., who served in Vietnam. ABC was making a calculated decision to air this show at the conclusion of Super Bowl XXII. And then, they began to have second thoughts. The decision to air China Beach at the end of Super Bowl XXII was in the works for a while, but it was officially announced to the public on January 13, 1988, just 3 weeks before the big game. Keep in mind just how little time there was for ABC to change their minds about this decision. You've got to start cutting up promos. You've got to start putting advertisements in the newspaper, and these advertisements blatantly say that the show airs after the Super Bowl, so they're not evergreen. And you've got to start planning how you're going to sell advertisements and ad breaks. In other words, this is not a decision that you can waver back and forth on. Not this close to the game. Networks decide what they're going to air after the Super Bowl months in advance. Heck, for this year's Super Bowl, NBC decided years in advance that they were going to air the Winter Olympics, knowing so far in advance that they were going to do this that they asked CBS if they could trade spots for the Super Bowl rotation specifically so that NBC could have this lead-out program. Basically, you don't make this decision lightly, and you don't make it at the last minute. China Beach was going to be the lead-out program. End of discussion. But as the days went by, and as the game drew closer, ABC started to have second thoughts. It wasn't that they didn't believe in the show got positive reviews and would eventually go on to win a Golden Globe for the best drama television series. The New York Times said that the show, when it was at its best, was terrifically on target, and said upon reviewing the pilot that this show could develop into a series worth having around. And it wasn't that they felt that the subject matter was too serious to air directly after the Super Bowl with kids watching. Remember that the only 2 shows that lasted more than a season were Vietnam War related, even if the A-Team was pretty cartoonish at times. Rather, it was another factor completely out of the control of the network at the time, and that was the length of the game. Super Bowl XXII was set to kick off at 6:20 p.m. Eastern. It was the latest starting Super Bowl on record at the time. As a side note, to learn more about why the Super Bowl starts so late now, compared to the 1960s and 1970s when the game kicked off in the afternoon, click the card in the upper right corner. The average NFL game back then took over 3 hours to play. Pace of play was a big problem for the NFL in the 1980s, as the game had a tendency to move at a snail's pace, even more so than it does today. And with the Super Bowl, the game takes even longer. Instead of your typical halftime break, the Super Bowl halftime break was more than double that length, as halftime lasted 30 minutes thanks to an extended halftime show. In this case, it was a Radio City produced show featuring the Rockettes and Chubby Checker, in what I'd personally consider to be the only halfway good halftime show of the entire 1980s. Throw in the post-game show, the trophy ceremony, where the winner is awarded the Vince Lombardi Trophy, and you're looking at a broadcast that's going to take upwards of 4 hours to finish, and that's on the quick side. It was very rare, and still is, for a Super Bowl broadcast to take under 4 hours to finish, from opening kickoff to the time the network officially signs off. And for ABC, they knew that the possibility of the game running late was a very real problem. ABC was aware that this problem could exist. Just look at what happened 1 year before at Super Bowl XXI, when CBS aired the game at the Rose Bowl between the New York Giants and the Denver Broncos. CBS had an entire thing and grand spectacle planned for the conclusion of the game. They were going to air a montage of the playoffs and of the Super Bowl set to One Shining Moment, which at the time, no one had heard before. Fun fact, One Shining Moment was originally set to be the theme song to the Super Bowl before it became the theme song to March Madness. You can learn more about why that was by clicking the card in the upper right corner. But because the game ran long, thanks to a ton of scoring and an extremely long instant replay review, CBS decided to cut the song and the montage from the broadcast so that they wouldn't lose their audience, and could keep as many people as possible to watch the pilot episode of Hard Copy. ABC saw CBS last year and saw them scrambling because the game ran way longer than they thought it would, so ABC knew that this was a very real possibility. And maybe this wouldn't be a problem if China Beach was a 30-minute show or even an hour-long show, but the pilot episode of China Beach was 2 hours long. In the absolute best-case scenario, based on the prior broadcasting history of the Super Bowl, the game was not going to be over before 10 o'clock Eastern. This meant that China Beach was not going to end until midnight. And again, this was the best-case scenario. If the game goes into overtime, or there's a really lengthy stoppage due to replay or a bad injury, the program wouldn't be over until 12:30 in the morning. Having a lead-out program that doesn't end until the next day is probably not the best idea for very obvious reasons. Getting people to stay glued to their TV screens for an additional 2 hours after watching a 4-hour broadcast already is tough, especially on the East Coast, when kids have to go to bed and get ready for school, and when adults have to go to bed, possibly drive back from a Super Bowl party or clean up, and get ready for work the next day. And after a lot of deliberation following the initial announcement, ABC decided at the last minute to call an audible. No longer were they going to air China Beach immediately following the Super Bowl. They were going to hold off on airing the show until a different date. Instead, at the conclusion of Super Bowl XXII, after Washington beat Denver by a final score of 42-10 to win their second Super Bowl in franchise history, ABC was premiering the pilot episode of a different brand new show. And the show they wound up airing instead? You may have heard of it before.
1968 was the year Vince Lombardi's Packers beat Al Davis's Raiders in Super Bowl II. I was just 12 years old and getting psyched up for junior high. But I bet I played football better than Elway then. Of course, John Elway was only 7. Looking back, the 1968 Super Bowl didn't seem like such a big deal. But then in 1968, I wasn't such a big deal either. Those sure were great years to be alive.
The Wonder Years, a special preview of a new kind of comedy, tonight after the Super Bowl.
That's right. Instead of airing China Beach, ABC decided to air the 30-minute pilot to the Wonder Years. And I think it's safe to say that this decision was a resounding success. Some even argue that this was the most successful series to ever premiere after the Super Bowl. When the show aired, it was an immediate hit, with critics such as the New York Times saying that the show was charming and was off to a winning start. And viewers seemed to agree. During the first year, the show finished 10th in the Nielsen ratings and was the 3rd highest rated show on the network, only behind Growing Pains and Who's the Boss. The show remained inside the top 25 in the ratings during the 2nd season, and in the 3rd season was the 8th ranked show in the ratings. The Wonder Years lasted 6 seasons and received a ton of awards. It won a Primetime Emmy in its very first season for Outstanding Comedy Series, even though I consider the ending to the pilot episode that aired right after the Super Bowl to be anything but a comedy. In total, the show won 25 awards and was nominated for 70, and received at least 1 nomination for a Primetime Emmy in all 6 seasons that it aired. Unlike Magruder and Loud, which only lasted 15 episodes, the Wonder Years lasted for 115 episodes. And again, when you consider the ratings, the reception that the show had, and the success of the show compared to every pilot episode to air after the Super Bowl immediately before and immediately after, many people consider the Wonder Years to be the greatest success story in the history of the Super Bowl of a lead-out program doing well, and of a network truly capitalizing on the spot. And that is what makes the story behind how it came to be all the more crazy. 3 weeks before the Super Bowl, the Wonder Years was never supposed to air after the game. It was supposed to be a completely different show, with a completely different tone appealing to a completely different audience. And this last-second audible by ABC, while definitely not an easy decision, turned out to be absolutely genius. Who knows how the history of television looks if it's China Beach that airs afterwards instead of the Wonder Years? Who knows whether or not the Wonder Years winds up having the success that it had if it didn't have that giant lead-in audience after the game for the pilot episode? Whatever the case, I'm sure ABC isn't losing sleep over this decision. Because more than 30 years later, you can make the argument that considering how successful the show was, and how last minute and how risky the audible was, that this was the greatest broadcasting decision in the illustrious history of the Super Bowl. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot, And be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JaredGator9 and subscribe to 60 Second NFL History on YouTube. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.